Hello friends, welcome to Dungeons & Dragonfly, where I adapt various characters for use in D&D. I'm Dragonfly9078, and today I'm building Major Tanya von Degurechaff of the Imperial 203rd Aerial Mage Battalion. After the build, be sure to check out my channel to vote for the next one, and hey, maybe check out my Patreon too, if you want. So, what do we want from this build? Well, first of all, we need war magic. Flight, artillery spells, shields, everything necessary to fight on the front lines. We also need to be both a brilliant tactician and a leader who inspires fear and loyalty in equal measure. And we need a connection to Being X, a supposed god who reincarnated us and grants us power, though only if we pray to him, no matter how unwillingly. Looking over to ability scores, I'll be using the standard point array. If you want to roll for stats, that's fine, just make sure your dexterity and charisma are high enough to multiclass. Starting off by dumping strength, we're a tiny 11-year-old girl. Dexterity's more our thing, so we'll make it a 13, both for better aim with our gun and for airborne acrobatics. Constitution is lower than I'd prefer, but we need other things more, and most artillery spells would just kill us outright if they hit us anyway. Intelligence is 14, we have all the experience and knowledge of our past life to draw on. Then Wisdom is 12. Mages tend to work as spotters for artillery, so we need to be able to see. And we'll finish up with a 15 in Charisma. Tanya's entire career is built on wanting to get sent to a safe position and pretending not to so hard that she keeps getting promoted further and further. Tanya is a human, but since we were reincarnated by Being X, we also qualify as a reborn, so we'll go with that. We'll choose to be small, and get +2 intelligence and +1 charisma to round both of them off to 16. Our reincarnation gives us a deathless nature, giving us advantage on saves against diseases, poison, and death, and resistance to poison damage, as well as making it so we don't need to eat, drink, breathe, or sleep. From our past life, we can carry over proficiency in history and persuasion, and a number of times per day equal to our proficiency, we can add a d6 to any skill check we make. Tanya's a child soldier, which has the word soldier in it, so soldier it is, for proficiency with athletics and intimidation. We do get a gaming set as well, let's say chess, and land vehicles. We're too young to drive, of course, but we did used to be a 40-year-old man, so it makes sense we'd at least know how. We'll start off as a rogue. It does delay getting magic a little bit, but that'll give us dexterity and intelligence saves, and 4 skills. I'll say acrobatics, deception, insight, and performance. 2 of our skills turn into expertises. History's probably the best option, then pretty much any of the charisma skills for the second. I'll go with performance. And since we mostly use guns, we can make good use of sneak attack, adding an extra d6 of damage to one of our ranged or finesse weapon attacks each turn if we had advantage on the attack, or an ally within 5 feet of the attack target. Our small stature makes us particularly quick and maneuverable in the air, so Cunning Action will let us dash, disengage, or hide as a bonus action. Then our sneak attack damage goes up at 3rd level, and we get a new way to get advantage with Steady Aim. By pausing in midair and not moving on our turn, we can use our bonus action to get advantage on our next attack. But that doesn't mean we can't move at all. As a scout, we're a skirmisher, so when an enemy ends their turn next to us, we can use our reaction to move up to half our speed without provoking opportunity attacks. We're also a survivalist, as our military survival training gives us free expertises in both nature and survival. Switching over now to Fighter. The archery fighting style adds 2 to our attack rolls with ranged weapons, including guns, not just bows despite the name. And we can get hopped up on chemical stimulants to keep ourselves in the battle with Second Wind, healing ourselves for 1d10 plus our fighter level as a bonus action once per rest. Action Surge gives us a second action on our turn once per rest, though bear in mind that even if we snap off a second rifle shot, we can't get our sneak attack damage more than once per turn. At 3rd level, we'll become a Battle Master. Being a student of war gives us proficiency with cartographer's tools. Maps are pretty important to commanding in a time of war. And Combat Superiority gives us superiority dice, 4d8s that refill on any rest that fuel our maneuvers. Commanding Presence and Tactical Assessment work effectively identically, adding a superiority die to certain skill checks. Commanding Presence boosts Intimidation, Persuasion, and Performance, and Tactical Assessment adds to Investigation, History, and Insight. Then Evasive Footwork adds a die to our AC while we're moving, for some acrobatics to avoid enemy fire. It does occur to me that, depending on whether you class them as martial weapons or not, we actually aren't proficient with guns yet, so the Gunner feat will give us firearm proficiency, along with rounding our dexterity to 14, letting us ignore the loading property of our guns, and letting us make ranged attacks without disadvantage while we're next to an enemy. Then at 5th level, we can make a second attack with the attack action, though again, we can only sneak attack once per turn. At 6th level, we'll grab the Mobile feat. That'll boost our speed by 10 feet, let us ignore difficult terrain when we dash, and save us some superiority dice, by preventing us from provoking opportunity attacks from creatures we attack in melee. But now it's finally time to get some magic, which we'll do as a sorcerer. And due to Tanya's intensely lawful alignment and use of what's effectively a magical computer as a spellcasting focus, will be a Clockwork Soul Sorcerer. We can restore balance a number of times per day equal to our proficiency bonus, using our reaction to negate advantage or disadvantage on a roll for us or another creature within 60 feet. Clockwork Sorcerers also get Clockwork spells that kind of act like a cleric's domain spells. They're always prepared and don't count against how many sorcerer spells we learn. Unusually, we can actually switch these out if we like, but the spell we replace them with has to be the same level, and has to be either an abjuration or transmutation spell from the Sorcerer, Warlock, or Wizard list. Alarm is a decent spell for a soldier, so we'll keep that, but we'll switch out Protection from Evil and Good for Longstrider. Protection is definitely a spell Tanya would want, since it repels Celestials, but Being X would never let us actually have it, so it has to go. For our regular spells, Booming Blade enhances our bayonet with magic to deal extra thunder damage on a hit, and even more if the target moves on their next turn. Message gives us short-range comms, Mending can keep our kit in proper working order, and Minor Illusion can project a static decoy to draw fire. The spell technically can't make creatures, just objects and sounds, but it really shouldn't be that much of a stretch. We're small enough to fit in a 5-foot cube, and we really just need it to hang in the air and provide a target while we catch our breath in the clouds, so it doesn't even need to be especially convincing. We'll take Shield for a protective barrier that adds 5 to our AC as a reaction, and Featherfall so we don't need to carry around a parachute. Sorcerers get a Font of Magic at 2nd level, a pool of sorcery points that refills on a long rest. Those can be used to fuel our Metamagics once we get them at 3rd level, but we can also convert them into spell slots and vice versa. Our spell at this level is Mage Armor, a nice AC buff to our flight suit that we can also probably rule keeps us from swallowing bugs while we fly. Those Metamagics that I mentioned are going to be Distant Spell and Extended Spell. Distant Spell doubles the range of a spell we cast that has a range of at least 5 feet, or gives a Touch Spell a range of 30 feet. And Extended Spell doubles the duration of a spell we cast, up to a max of 24 hours. Then we'll grab Detect Magic to hunt down enemy mages. For Clockwork spells at this level, we can keep Aid and switch Lesser Restoration out for Dark Vision. Tanya is fairly well known for her speeches, both the ones she cribbed from war movies and the insane rants about killing God, so Inspiring Leader feels right up her alley. We can give a 10-minute speech, then choose up to 6 friendly creatures who listen to it, and have them gain temporary HP equal to our level plus our charisma modifier. We can choose ourself, but a given creature can't get temporary HP from our speeches more than once per rest. For spells at this level, Gust is a fun little cantrip that, among other things, we can use to shove a creature 5 feet if they fail a strength save. We can, of course, use this on ourselves, for a nice air break or a way to switch direction or dodge away from an attack on a dime. Then Scorching Ray uses our magic to fire a salvo of burning bullets that can rip through up to 3 targets, dealing 2d6 fire damage per hit. At 5th level we get 3rd level spells, and the obvious choice is Fly, which gives us a 60-foot magical flying speed for up to 10 minutes with our concentration. That's not always enough time to get in, complete the mission, and get out though, which is what Extended Spell is for. For our Clockwork spells at this level, Dispel Magic and Protection from Energy are both fine, but we'll trade Dispel Magic for an artillery spell, namely Erupting Earth, which makes the ground in a 20-foot cube explode, dealing 3d12 bludgeoning damage to any creatures in the area who fail a dexterity save, and making the whole area difficult terrain. I have to assume it would also damage structures and flip over vehicles that are on top of it, since, the ground underneath them just exploded, but that's not actually spelled out in the spell description. 6th level Clockwork sorcerers can make a more permanent force field with Bastion of Law. We can spend between 1 and 5 sorcery points to make a barrier represented by that many d8s. When we take damage, we can expend any number of those dice and reduce the damage by the total roll. Then, since we're a spotter for artillery, we'll grab Clairvoyance, to keep an eye on enemy troop movement without exposing ourselves to enemy mage fire. And we'll finish off the build as a Celestial Warlock. I actually had a brief discussion with someone a while back as to why Celestial Warlock even exists, when it's so similar thematically to Cleric, and Tanya is a prime example of why. She does get her power from a celestial being, but she is in no way actually devoted to him. Still, Being X does give us Light and Sacred Flame, both very useful cantrips. Sacred Flame in particular is useful in the World War I-esque trench warfare Tanya landed in, since it ignores cover. Then we can get some magical stimulants to go with our chemical ones, with Healing Light. We have a pool of d6s equal to 1 plus our Warlock level. The pool refills on a long rest, and as a bonus action, we can spend a number of dice up to our Charisma modifier and heal a creature within 60 feet for the total roll, which, as usual, can be ourselves. The main spell I want from Warlock is of course Eldritch Blast, for magic bullets that deal 1d10 force damage and can't run out. Plus we get 4 per shot once we hit level 17. Then actually Prestidigitation, because pretty much everything about this spell would have been a godsend for trench warfare. Warm, clean clothes on demand and warm, tasty food on demand? Incredible. There really aren't many leveled Warlock spells that I want, so feel free to pick your favorites. I do like Comprehend Languages for Tanya though, it is a world war after all. Our first invocation is going to be Eldritch Spear, which makes the range of our Eldritch Blast 300 feet. We can use Distance Spell to double that to 600 feet for some long-range sniping too if we really want to, but there will be something else we want Distance Spell for. For our Pact boon, I'm going to say that since it can store information, the Computation Gem, that being X Blessed, qualifies for the Pact of the Tome, giving us 3 free cantrips from any list. Since it's blessed, it feels appropriate to make them cleric spells. Guidance adds a d4 to an ally's ability check, and Spare the Dying stabilizes a dying creature, both of which are touch spells and can therefore be done from 30 feet away with Distance Spell, by the way. Then Thaumaturgy is a bunch of minor sensory type effects. The ones I'm most interested in are changing our eye color, since that actually happens when Tanya uses her magic, and tripling the volume of our voice, for a loudspeaker to address enemy towns and warn them that they're about to be blown sky high. Our last ASI will boost our Charisma to 18, and we'll pick up Blade Ward for a little bit of extra protection. Then our capstone will be the 5th level of Warlock for 2 final invocations. Since we took the Pact of the Tome, we can also take Farscribe, which lets us cast Sending at will, but only to the handful of people registered in our computation jewel, so we can always be in contact with the HQ no matter the distance. And for a last bit of artillery, we can grab Kiss of Mephistopheles. After we hit a creature with our Eldritch Blast, we can use our bonus action to cast Fireball using a Warlock slot, but it has to be centered on a creature that we Eldritch Blasted. So we can shoot someone with a magic bullet that then explodes into a 40-foot diameter fireball. That's also what we want a Distance Spell for, by the way. Fireball's range is 150 feet, which Distance Spell doubles to 300, which of course is exactly the range of Eldritch Blast thanks to Eldritch Spear. Now that the build is complete, the question becomes, how good is it? Well, as expected of the Aerial Mage Battalion, our mobility is excellent. We've got a 70-foot flying speed, or 80 with Longstrider. We can move 35 to 40 feet as a reaction to a creature getting near us, and we're practically immune to opportunity attacks. To add to that, our range is enormous. 300 feet is more than most campaigns will ever need for a fight, and we've got that on Fireball. Plus, depending on what firearm stats you're using, our normal non-magical rifle probably has a max range of around 120 to 240 feet. We're also surprisingly tanky for having less than 100 HP, since we can Speechify a free 24 temporary HP per rest, along with a free 1d10 plus 6 HP per rest, and 6d6 HP per day from Second Wind and Healing Light respectively, plus whatever damage reduction we get from our Bastion of Law. On the other hand, we do still only have around 95 HP on average, and Power Word Kill bypasses all of that. We also only have 2 Warlock spell slots per rest to use for our Fireball, and only 6 sorcery points to use for Distance Spell or converting into extra spell slots. Also worth mentioning, we can't convert sorcery points into Warlock slots to use for Fireball. If the slots we make with sorcery points are anything, they're Sorcerer slots. And since we don't actually know Fireball, we're just casting it thanks to our invocation, we can't use Sorcerer slots to cast it. And finally, Concentration. We pretty much have to maintain concentration on Fly at all times, so we can't cast any other concentration spells unless we're on the ground at the time, like, say, Guidance or Detect Magic. And if we ever lose concentration, we have to burn a whole 3rd level spell slot to stay airborne.
死んだのか。どこでそれを？聞かなくとも自明だろう。動かない統治下など、砲兵にとって格好の的。死にたがっていた奴らにはちょうどよい。まさか、小隊長殿はこうなることを承知で。あれは幼女の皮をかぶった化け物です。
Thank you for watching, friends. I hope you enjoyed the build. Head on over to my community tab if you want to vote for the next character for me to do. This week is a special Pride Couples edition between Korra and Asami from The Legend of Korra, Adora and Catra from She-Ra, Luce and Amity from The Owl House, and a little bit of a throwback, Utena and Anthe from Revolutionary Girl Utena. If you have any feedback or suggestions for characters you'd like to see me build, please leave them in the comments below, and they could show up in a future poll. Leave a like or subscribe if you want to see more, and if you want to support what I'm doing here, you can check the description for the link to my Patreon, for access to the Discord channel, early access to future builds, and exclusive Patreon content. Thanks again for watching, I will see y'all later.